Hi guys, so welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be talking about a topic that's been on my mind a lot recently, and I want to talk a bit more about these kind of mental health topics because I'm training to be a counsellor and it's something that I'm really interested in. So yeah, I like talking about these kind of things, and I think when I'm watching YouTube or like listening to podcasts, I love listening to podcasts about different mental health topics and like what you can learn from other people and how they like the different experiences that they've gone through and how that can kind of help you with stuff that you're going through. So yeah, we're going to talk about rejection today. We're going to talk about the different types of rejection we can experience in our lives and how this can affect us in different ways, mentally, physically, and how other people can experience that from us. And then in the end, I am going to tell you about ways I've coped, and hopefully this can help you with your struggles. So stick around to the end of the video and I will be talking about those things and giving you some tips on how to deal with rejection. So first things first, we're going to talk about some facts that I found on the interwebs about rejection. Yeah, it's just some little facts about it, what it means for us. So Guy Winch, who has a PhD, I found this article he wrote in Psychology Today, and he talks about how rejection activates the same part of our brain as is activated when we are physically hurt. So it kind of stimulates the same parts of our brain as physical pain. So this is quite interesting because you can see how and why rejection affects us so profoundly, because when you're hurt, obviously you need time to rest and heal, and it can be quite a painful experience. Your brain can feel that deeply. The only reason we feel pain is because of our brain, which is also something else interesting. But you can see how when you have a rejection, this can also produce that same result in your body. So your brain is simulating that you are in pain in that moment, so it's going to be feeling similar and it's going to be a difficult experience for you. My second fact is that as humans, it's a fundamental need for us to belong to a group. So they talk about this in the article, and from my own experience and from what I've kind of learned around this area is that obviously in the past we used to kind of travel in packs, and if you think about animals, they all travel and function in groups. Most of them, I would say, maybe not all, but most animals need to belong to like a pack or a group, and this group is essential for their survival. And I think because this is kind of hardwired into our brains from the beginning of time, when we used to be animals, we experience that lack of belonging, that rejection from a group as detrimental to our own survival. And I think this is why when we are rejected, whether that just be from a friend or from a parent or from a job, these things can feel a lot bigger to us because we need that belonging, and without that belonging in the past we wouldn't survive. So we can see why this would be quite difficult for us to get our heads around. Another thing they talk about in this article is that rejection can also produce a lot of feelings of anger, and I think they talk about like how people can become aggressive because of rejection. And I wanted to talk about this as well as like not just anger, but rejection can also produce lots of different feelings. So it can produce sadness, disappointment, feeling downtrodden, just not feeling our best, and it can really aggravate feelings that we already have and bring those feelings to the surface. Maybe if you're somebody who tends towards anger, that might be your default response to rejection, but somebody who feels more anxiety about different things, or worry or sadness, they might then go towards the worry or panic. Or they might, if they're somebody who gets depressive, you might go toward, they call it like, I think it's like the fawn response, where you just lie down and wait for the danger to pass. But for some people, then that can manifest in not wanting to get out of bed, not wanting to do anything, feeling really kind of like everything is too much, and feeling very hurt. And I think hurt can be a really painful thing to experience. It's almost like a broken heart, right? It's like a very painful, raw experience that is hard for us to kind of get over. So I also, when I was doing a lot of research about rejection, and this came from some of the work I've done with therapists and the work I've done on myself, and I've noticed that rejection can be related to grief, and this was backed up by what I saw online. So it is almost a type of grief, because you're grieving maybe a hypothetical future that you thought you were going to have. For example, if you wanted to get a specific job, you might have really imagined deeply what that job would look like, what your life would look like while you were doing that job, and you've really bought into that hypothetical reality, and then it's almost like that just gets pulled from under you, and you just falling into kind of emptiness. And it's definitely part of a grieving process where you're grieving something you thought you would have. Sometimes if it's like relational rejection, that can be maybe grieving the relationship or grieving that part of you that's been rejected. I think it can be very complicated, but it's very interesting to kind of see how rejection can relate to grief. So what are different types of rejection we can experience in life? So I was looking this up, and on goodtherapy.org I found the different types of rejection we can experience. So the first one is social rejection. So that can be from a group, in a workplace, in any kind of maybe organization or bigger framework of people. That can be subtle things like just not feeling belonging, feeling kind of pushed to the side. This can happen in school for a lot of people. I definitely experienced that in my school, and I felt that really impacted the way I see myself. Because when you're rejected on a big scale, that can be even more difficult than a more close rejection sometimes. But it really depends on the situation. Then we've got familial rejections. That'll be family. This is obviously very difficult, and obviously it can be different types of rejection in that circumstance. It could be like a proper rejection, a proper alienation from your family, or it can be rejections of slight things that you've done, or your feelings and emotions, things like that. So that can be another type of rejection. You then got friendship rejection. So definitely, again, I've experienced this many times. This could be while you're in a friendship or before even starting a friendship. So being rejected from starting that friendship, or being rejected from a friend group. These can be particularly painful, especially if they're built up over time. They can kind of compound into feelings of inadequacy. And then we've got obviously romantic rejection. This is the type of rejection that people think of when you say the word rejection. But as we've seen, it's a lot more than just romantic rejection. But that can be for a potential partner or somebody you're interested in, and they just reject you, your advances. Or even when you're in a relationship, you can experience lots of different types of rejection. In any type of relationship, rejection is kind of a big part of it. And then lastly, I've got job rejection, which I added on because I think this is one that's not really talked about. But obviously, when you are applying for jobs, you experience a lot of rejections along the way, and I'm going to touch on this in a bit, but it's something that prompted me to make this video because I've been experiencing this for the last year or so or longer, and yeah, it's definitely a rejection that can be hard to swallow after it happening a lot of times. So what are the consequences of rejection? How does it affect us? So it can cause depression, as I talked about briefly before. It can cause depression in people, cause them to feel helpless, hopeless, have a lower motivation to do things, to go outside, if it's a job rejection, you might have a lower motivation to apply for more jobs, things like that. It could also cause anxiety and stress within you, as we talked about before. Depends on what your default response is, but yeah, you might feel anxious, and it might cause a lot of stress for you in your day-to-day life. It can have a pain response, as we talked about at the beginning. So you might feel physical pain, physical symptoms of that rejection. Often emotional pain causes physical pain, or physical pain can cause emotional pain. They kind of go hand in hand a lot of the time. But yeah, there's obviously lots of physical symptoms you might experience. And then we've got trauma, massive one. So if rejection is something that becomes sort of commonplace in your life, it can cause a lot of trauma for people. And then when it happens again, it can bring a lot of stuff up. And it can be a type of abuse as well. I think it's worth mentioning that. So in terms of my experiences, I'm going to touch on this briefly, but as I've said, recently I've had many job rejections. I've applied for loads of different jobs of different kind of quality, I guess. I don't know if that's the right word, but more menial jobs and jobs that are more related to what I did for my degree. I touched on this in my young people video, but definitely if rejection becomes something that you're encountering a lot, it definitely lowers your self-esteem. It definitely makes you feel like there's something wrong with you, especially if there's no explanation as to why the rejection's taking place. And I think that's one thing about job rejection, which can be difficult. Then other rejections is that you often don't get an explanation as to why you were rejected. It's just kind of nope, you're not right, that's it, sorry, hope you find something else. And it can feel very cold and very difficult. And I think definitely I'm feeling now that it makes me feel very hopeless, and that I don't really know what the next step is, and I don't want to keep getting rejected because I don't know what I'm doing wrong. How can I improve and avoid that rejection in the future? So yeah, that can be very difficult, and it's something that I've definitely struggled with recently. I've also struggled with friendship rejection, as I touched on, so indefinitely when I was growing up, and even to this day, lots of rejection. Kind of, it's not so much, I guess, like typical rejection, but more subtle forms of it, and maybe I feel it within myself. It doesn't always have to be like as cut and dry. It can be the way you feel about a situation. You might feel rejected depending, and it might not be just what the other person's doing, but how you feel. So yeah, I've definitely experienced that a lot in my life, and again, that's definitely impacted me, definitely impacted the way that I view the world. And I think we live in a more unfriendly world. I don't know if that's kind of just my perception, but it's something that I've definitely felt, is that we are a lot more enclosed than we used to be, because we are able to kind of hide behind screens and not have to interact with people so much. As somebody who's like an introvert, I appreciate this, but I also appreciate that I need social interaction, and people don't often want to have that social interaction, which can leave you feeling rejected. So what are my thoughts, my closing thoughts, and what have I learned that can help in these situations? What have I learned from my experiences? So one thing I've learned is that rejection is becoming more common, I feel. I don't know if this is just because of the way that our world is now, but it seems like you are gonna encounter a lot more rejection nowadays. I think it's because there's more people, less opportunities, and it's just people have so many more options in anything, in any type of situation. Whether it's a job, there's so many candidates, they all have amazing experience. In relationships, there's loads of people that you can choose from, and you don't have to be as committed as you used to be. When it comes to relationships, people can easily ghost people on dating apps and things like that. As I said before, friendships, people feel like seems to be that they don't care as much about friendships, or if they do, because they have so many, they don't have to commit to a person and show up for them as much as maybe they used to. Another thing I learned is rejection can actually be a positive thing, and I'm a firm believer of, if it didn't happen, it wasn't meant for me. So if I don't get a job, maybe that's because it wasn't the right thing for me. If I didn't get a relationship, maybe that wasn't the right thing for me. So it's not always a negative, and you can definitely see it as a positive in the long run. Rejection can sometimes feel very unfair, and I think that's quite hard when you're going through the grieving process to get over some rejections, because they can just feel really unwarranted. But I think that is just unfortunately part of life, and there's not much we can do about it really. But what can actually help in these situations? So the things I've found that have helped me is, one, allowing the grieving process. So allowing myself to be sad, allowing myself to just take some time away to process what's happened, making sure I give myself that time to feel how I'm feeling and not pressurize myself to get straight back into things and push on, because I think that makes things worse. Another thing is thinking of a time in the past where I never thought things would work out, but then they did. Maybe I was rejected a lot and then suddenly something came along which was right for me. These things do happen, and they can renew our faith and make us feel like this isn't the end of the world. Next thing is lean on your support network. If you have people around you, go to them, tell them what's going on, let them in when you need them. This can be so helpful. Next is do things that make you happy. If you're going through a really rough time, you need those things that cheer you up, that make you feel better. It doesn't matter if it's like getting Mackies or having chocolate or watching a TV show. If it makes you happy and it makes you feel better, you should do it. And lastly, zoom out of the situation. In 10 years, will this still be something that you're thinking about a lot, or will it be something that you realize it was quite important in your journey? And sometimes this can be the case, and I do believe that things generally can get better. Obviously there are situations where people are in really horrible situations and they necessarily can't get out of it, but maybe things will work out, and that's the only thing that sometimes gets me through a situation. So I'm gonna wrap this up here. I've been talking for a long time and my voice hurts, but yeah, I hope you found this useful. I hope it kind of shed some light on the topic, and if you're going through something, any type of rejection, know that it won't be this way forever, that it will hopefully get better, and allow yourself to feel crappy. It's a hard thing to go through, and it's not something you should power through and pretend isn't happening. So yeah, thanks so much for watching. If you're not subscribed, please press that button. It really helps me. I'm just finding my feet on this YouTube stuff, and yeah, I definitely appreciate any sorts of support, even just comments or whatever. I love hearing from people. So yeah, do check out my Instagram. I will leave it at the end of this video, where you can see like my art and how I'm getting on with my sort of weekly art practice. As I've kind of said in my YouTube, I'm trying to get better at art, and this is the way that I'm improving it. So yeah, I hope you have a lovely rest of your day, whatever you're doing, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!